Welcome, everyone. I'm Avi Rajagopal, Editor-in-Chief of Metropolis, and I have the privilege today of introducing you to a few students from the Metropolis Future 100, who are the top 100 architecture and interior design graduates in the United States and Canada, selected by Metropolis magazine. Joining me today is David Polson, who is Executive Director of Design at Canon Design, one of the wonderful sponsors of this year's Future 100 program. David, welcome. Such a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
David, I've looked at all the students' work. I know you've looked at some of the students' work. Give me just some of your very initial reactions. What did you think of this group?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's been a real honor, a pleasure to have had the opportunity to look at all the students' work. And I have looked at all 100, at least at some cursory level. And the kind of investigation that's going on in schools of architecture and interior design around the country, I think is really amazing. It's really heading in a direction that I think is going to influence practice going forward. I think these students are going to come into the profession with aggressive ideas about changing the world. And I think that they're learning some traditional skills, and they're learning some really provocative new skills that are going to influence how we work in the future.
Absolutely. You know, the thing that struck me about the set of work is that, you know, students are often described as being idealistic. I feel like that's definitely a cliche that you hear a lot, and sometimes it's not meant very kindly, you know. But what I love about this group of students really is actually they're pretty pragmatic, you know. So every project that we're going to watch today is really grounded in some real world contexts and needs, whether it's, you know, the path of the sun, or the particulars of a site, or the culture of a particular community. So it's based in real needs and real context. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that the work lacks ambition. Which I hope all of you will agree with when you see these students' work. So let's take a look at some of their work, and then David, we'll share some thoughts about what we think about these students' amazing projects.
Hi, my name is Julia Schettler. I'm a graduate student at Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa. I'm honored to be considered a Future 100 designer. Designers are the gatekeepers to the indoor experience. It's one of the fields that can impact countless lives with every decision we make. I believe in creating spaces that make it easy for people to do and share their best work and to live their fullest vision of their lives. That way we can bring out the best in each other. So instead of developing space that'll just do, why don't we work towards optimal experience for all? Our empathy and ability to recognize aspects of ourselves and others is what's needed to move towards solution-oriented, evidence-based design. A recent project explored end-of-life care and ways of making this transition more peaceful during such a difficult experience. Previous iterations of hospice environments involved recreating familiar scenes and home-like environments. But rather than resurfacing memories of a life near its end, why not look forward and make it a hopeful experience of light and trust? This concept allows people to feel at ease during their final days. Biophilic elements of a garden atrium, expansive views beyond the confines of patient rooms, a color palette of neutrals and greens, and a diligence to patient care were key components to a successful execution. My graduate research is in the activity-based workplace pre-COVID, in all its success and failure, and anticipates changes that might be made in a post-COVID workplace. The project is still ongoing, but I can't wait to share this work with you soon. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sushmita Shetkar, an urban designer at Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, SOM, and a graduate from Columbia University, New York. Rethinking Retail was a project conceived at Columbia University in collaboration with Einat Lubliner, Hatem Al-Katlan, and Chris Zen. Today, with the impacts of COVID-19 and the transition from traditional shopping to e-commerce, the main street retail, big box stores, and malls, which were a de facto social space in most American cities, have turned into redundant infrastructure. In the last 5 years, especially in the last year, more than 150 shopping malls and countless retail stores have closed. The repercussions of this transition not only affects economy and jobs, but also affects the quality of public space, interaction on streets, and the vacancy in many cities that needs to be repurposed. As urban designers, through this project, we explored how we can relook at a retail model through a social, economic, and carbon effective lens. The redundant infrastructure in cities can be converted into collaborative retail spaces that foster several small-scale businesses to come together to share workspace, storage space, and even shipping infrastructure. This sharing of assets among several businesses not only reduces cost and carbon emission, but also funnels in local economy and promotes interaction among several businesses. The collaborative retail model will not just address businesses, but also will address the social interaction on streets. It will activate the streets, increase the quality of the public realm, which is so essential in the COVID-19 era. It will also increase interaction between the consumer and the businesses, thereby increasing consumer awareness and reducing carbon emission. Thank you.
My name is Shay Hill, and I'm a fourth-year interior design student at the University of Texas at Austin. One of the projects that I'm most passionate about is the proposal for the Boys and Girls Club. I really enjoyed this project because we were able to work directly with the client. So one of the stories that really stood out to me was when they're describing the Game X program. So this is a program that was centered around game design that focused on kind of character development, narrative construction, and different design aspects of game design. And what really struck me was the idea that they were taking something that kids were passionate about and interested in and showing that it was a viable career path in order to empower them. So I wanted to implement this idea of empowerment by using a free plan PlayStation organization. And what this means is that it's a grouping of different discrete experiences that allows the occupant to move around freely and choose what they want to do. With this, I created several spaces to try to capture this idea. One of the spaces was the Farm to Fork experience, which was a series of 3 different rooms, from kind of growing food to cooking food to eating food, where children of different ages could come together and have like a community around food. And then another one of these spaces was the affirmation room, which was a room off the bathroom, so a more private space where you could give yourself affirmations and have a moment of solitude. And then a third space was the art and dance classroom, which was intended to also just provide other areas of connection and could also lead potentially to deeper connections. And with this, so much like the Game X program, I really wanted to capture this idea of empowerment that also the Boys and Girls Club tries to promote.
My name is Tian Liu, and I feel really honored to be featured in the Metropolis Future 100 program. Here I want to introduce one of my projects with you. It's a museum extension project located in Czech Republic. As we can see from the rendering, the site is located in the backyard of the original museum and has been a historical park that has established a very intimate relationship with the local citizens. And the trees in the backyard are all over 50 years old. So in order to protect the historical environment, the extension part is decided to be built underground. And considering the lighting issues of the underground space, some glass boxes are being inserted in between the preserved trees to function as skylights. And then a series of spatial form is generated in Grasshopper based on the local sunlight data. Is being evaluated by multiple standards, including the solar altitude, the sunlight duration, and color temperature. And then the one that has best performance is being selected in that it could maximize the usage of local sunlight and meanwhile provide a comfortable environment for the visitors. From the side plan, we can see how the glass boxes are being inserted in between the preserved cheese. And also, they are like mirrors that constantly react with the local environment. For instance, during the daytime, it creates a visual connection between the ground and underground. And during the nighttime, the light of the underground space will shine through the glass boxes and they become the lamp. The rendering shows various lighting effects in different seasons, which could enrich the visitor's experience. Thank you so much.
Okay, David. I mean, such a diverse group of projects. What are your first thoughts?
Well, I think diverse is a great word for it, because you have different students looking at different generations of people. So looking at an oft overlooked group in our society, segment of our society, people at end of life, looking at hospice care on the one end of the spectrum. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have a Boys and Girls Club really looking at the empowerment of children. And I love that idea of really empowering really at both ends of life, because you're also empowering the dying as well as empowering the growing, and I think diversity of scales, from the notion of an affirmation room all the way up to the urban scale. And even diversity of methodologies, the kind of real intimate human experience of biophilic design, all the way to the use of grasshopper for studying intricate nature in which sunlight enters these spaces.
Those two that you talked about, it's funny because I mean both those structures are so clearly based around sunlight, and yet it's just such different approaches to that. With Julia Schettler's hospice for end of life, it's using fairly conventional layouts, but really opening up views and opening up to sunlight. Whereas, in Tian Liu's project for the North Bohemian Museum, it's using the sunlight itself to generate form, sort of this parametric, really amazing approach. But it seems like what's wonderful is that the goal is kind of the same, is to, create this connection between people and nature, and there's just such different ways of doing that. Anyway, fantastic group. Let's take a look at the next set of students.
Hi, my name is James, and I'm an architecture student at SCAD. While studying architecture, I was not afraid to study outside of architecture because I believe everything is related. Nowadays, with so many societal issues, including climate change, architecture designers are required to have a multilateral perspective to address questions to the challenges we face today. One of the projects I shared with Metropolis is a school project located in Copenhagen, Denmark. The way I approach architecture design is not only by looking at the project type and the program, but the remedies architecture can bring when it is human-centric and environmentally friendly. For this project, the problem I tackled was meeting the challenge of the failure of the traditional educational system and the future of food in the context of global warming and the explosion of the world population and rapid urbanization. The name of the project is called Sandbox, a place where students can run, fall, and stand up. A metaphor of a safe place to fail, teaching children that it is okay to fail as long as they can stand back up. The proposal includes a user experience that allows children to grow with nature, learn about the invisible values in renewable energy, and lastly, introducing urban agriculture as a sustainable lifestyle. I hope you can find this value in my project featured in Metropolis this year. Thank you.
Hi, Metropolis. My name is Nick Swanner, and I'm a grad student at Marymount University, located right outside of Washington, D.C. In terms of highlighting for my personal portfolio, I would have to say my favorite project is Source, a health and wellness day spa located in Jamestown, Rhode Island. The reason why I like this project so much is probably because of the overall concept of sustainability and sense of place through locality. The way I do this within this project is through the use of local materiality. Utilizing materials from local farmers, merchants, vendors of the Jamestown area, I decided I wanted the overall space to feel vernacular, but also restorative. The overall goals were to basically pair vernacular design with a rustic interior, but also the functional needs of a large wellness facility. The overall goal of the design was to celebrate local materiality through sustainability and to support the local businesses and craftsmen. In doing so, I had hoped the spot would inherently use those biophilic elements that calm and also promote a sense of restoration for the end user.
Hello, my name is Nora Alkayat, and I'm a fourth-year graduating student at Ryerson School of Interior Design, located in Toronto. As a designer, I identify myself to be very vibrant, imaginative, and creative. Growing up, I've always had a love and passion for illustration making, painting, and studying history. I've learned to transfer my artistic visions and narratives into a practical yet innovative architectural practice throughout my academic career. Outside of design, I really value giving back. I've volunteered with Habitat for Humanities, helping in the construction of building homes for low-income families. I also spend my time volunteering with an organization where I work closely with the Syrian refugees in the help of transitioning them into our society in Canada. The project that I'll be discussing is the Skylight House, a case study project that visualizes and reimagines the existing Australian bungalow designed by Andrew Berg's architects. This residential visualization project allowed me to enhance and develop my visual communication skills while studying the design components of the intervention. First off, I created an illustration of a vibrant section perspective that investigates the kitchen components. Within this visualization project, I also created a rendering of the kitchen, conceptually adapted into an imagined vintage atmosphere. I interpreted the atmospheric quality in this vintage style to reflect my personal fascination for history and studying history and design in different eras. Beyond this, I explored portraying the detail elements of space by modeling and showing the millwork, bar top, and beyond with laser-cut wooden panels and a collaged wooden texture, showing the warmth of the space. This model is 3D printed with a removable roof showing the gesture of the party. I believe this model defines me and my style as a designer and my future potential in the industry. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sophia and I'm a fifth-year architecture student at Cal Poly Pomona, and today I want to talk to you about one of my projects called The Alley. The Alley is a project that I worked on for my urban design studio located in Hollywood. Hollywood is renowned for being a cultural hub that centers on the importance of art, music, and film. The goal for this project was to bridge the gap between the Hollywood tourist community and the more local neighborhood. To begin my project, I started by identifying the void spaces and left behind spaces from existing program within this block. I then started to fill this void space with a series of masses to allow for a new art and music program to be introduced and bridge the gap between the tourist and more local community. The sweeping motion of the curved form allows tourists to be invited into this new community space, as well as allow locals to enter into the project. On the ground floor, we have a range of different arts programs, such as a jazz club and a music lounge, an art gallery space, studio space, and a small library and an outdoor amphitheater for the users of the community. Sectionally, this project is split up into 3 different layers: public, semi-public, and private. The most public layer allows users to circulate throughout the program very freely and includes a music lounge and a jazz club. In the center, we have our gallery space and performance spaces for the residents that are living above and live work units to perform and show off their work to the public. This section also shows the different quality of spaces. And as you can see, nature is an element that is found throughout the project to connect the 3 different layers to bridge this gap between the tourist and more local community. So on the ground floor, we have a very open plan to allow people to circulate throughout the project. In the center, we have this art gallery space. And on the top, we have live work units, which is a more private space for the residents. And here are a few just different views of the project to allow you to understand how residents would experience this space. They have a very nice view of Hollywood. In the center, we can see how nature connects with the different spaces. So this would be an interior rendering of the gallery space. On the right is another render of the residential, more private level to see how residents interact with each other. And we can see little moments where nature pokes out and connects the different layers. Thank you for listening to me talk about my project, The Alley, and I hope you enjoyed this month's issue.
Well, what strikes me about this group of students in particular is, at a very sort of initial level, is just the variety of visualization and rendering styles too. There's some common threads. Nora exploring both, sort of this very photorealistic and visualization style, but using it to create this completely imagined kitchen interior from the 1950s, but using a more collage sort of abstracted style to represent sort of a contemporary scenario. I think that's really interesting. This, pushing the boundaries of visualization and sort of questioning this idea of dissociation of photorealistic rendering with actual reality. I find that fascinating. But David, what are your thoughts about this group of students?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Nora's project. I think her project really stood out for challenging norms in architectural academia and in practice today around this insatiable desire for photorealism. So she's introducing collage, she's looking at color, and she's understanding the notion of locating place in history, so that historical reference to the 1950s comes out so clearly without even hearing her words, because we have those visual associations with those different kinds of icons that she's playing with. So I just love that. And you're right, the different visualization styles, even the project in Hollywood is kind of a very stripped down, there's a kind of an essentialism to that, just to really not talk about architectural applique, but really just creating that space between the buildings and getting you to focus on that. So I do think that there is a real attention to that. And I think in the group overall, this sense of people and place and thinking about that. So in the Hollywood project, how does the tourist population intersect with the local population or not intersect? And then, in the wellness center, this notion of place and locality through materials. So I think they're taking a really transcendent notion in design and continuing to explore that, which I think is so fundamental.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at our next set of students.
Hi, my name is Cale Ambule, and I want to start by saying how grateful I am to be included in the Metropolis Future 100. I want to thank not only Metropolis Magazine, but first and foremost my professors at Drury University, who were the ones who encouraged me to apply for this honor, but also who have just played the fundamental role in encouraging me to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pursuing what excites me about architecture. And one of the things that excites me the most about architecture is this ability to create learning experiences. Obviously, architecture is all about creating experience through space, but there's a further opportunity, I think, to create experiences that help us understand our built environment as well as our lived experience. And this kind of idea is actually at the center of one of my projects, the Acropolis of Play. This is a daycare center on the island of Aegina, Greece, where I spent 3 months studying abroad in the fall of 2019, which was an incredible experience on its own. But designing within this context is a new kind of challenge. It's a very different context than Midwestern America, where I've grown up and where I've gone to school. So immersing myself in that culture really kind of manifested an understanding of, what is the daily experience of a Greek child, of a Greek family, of a Greek person on this island of Aegina. And really, when thinking about a daycare, the idea that's at the core is this idea of play. Hence the name Acropolis of Play. Play is something that's sacred in this project. And the idea is that, when a 3, 4, or 5-year-old student is going to school, going to daycare, it's not about learning arithmetic or learning the alphabet or learning these kind of tactile things that we learn in school usually. It's more about learning to socialize, learning how to behave in a group, learning how to share, basically learning through play. That's one of the ideas of Maria Montessori, who's one of the sources for this project, where I look to in the early stages. So basically the whole building, all the classrooms and the social space on the building are aligned along this kind of axial linear playscape, I call it, which is really just this free-form environment where children are invited to roam free, to explore and to kind of find their own way. and additional elements within the building, such as walls or windows, kind of break themselves down to the scale of a child and encourage children to crawl through walls, like portals in the wall. They might use it as a cubby to kind of hide out in. Or you can even climb up into the wall at some points in this project. So really it's about thinking about how we can take this built environment that is usually designed for adults, designed very practically and is maybe kind of ostracizing to children, and really flip that and say, okay, how can we design this for children to be this engaging environment, kind of change their understanding of their built environment and of their world as they explore through play and kind of find their own way. So once again, I wanted to say thank you for this honor, both to Metropolis Magazine, to my professors, and to my classmates. Yeah, and thank you for listening.
For the 2019 Steelcase Student Design Competition, the brief was to develop the Next Hub, which was a satellite location for the Greater Next University. The Next Hub was located in Washington, D.C., which brought instant inspiration. I was immediately inspired by freedom, which is a founding principle of our nation's capital. And tracing freedom back and democracy to ancient Greek culture, I was really inspired by Greek architecture throughout the process of this project. And out of Greek culture came a term known as eudaimonia, which means the pinnacle state of human flourishing. And in order to achieve eudaimonia, it's a continuous seeking, it's a lifelong journey of seeking well-being and happiness through the considerations of self and personal development. And to support eudaimonia, we need freedom, flexibility, resources, and an adaptive environment. So to really hone in on how you can push this concept through a project, I wanted to focus on the flexibility and use that the furniture provided, as well as the spaces that were being created, and making sure there was a variety. This is mainly to assist in either individual academia work or collaborative work, and making sure that depending on the learning styles of individuals, that those needs could be met through the space and furniture provided. And if it wasn't there, that the user could create that environment themselves with the resources available. So I really enjoyed this project. It was very fun to develop, and I really appreciate the guidance and the challenge that it was throughout the design process. And I learned a lot through this project from beginning to end, and I just really appreciate that opportunity.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Koenig, and I'm a senior undergraduate student studying interior design at Kent State University in Kent, Ohio. Throughout my education, I have developed a passion for considering the issues that we as designers often fail to address. This comes in the form of developing an empathetic understanding of the users in each space and thinking about how design can serve as an enabling force for empowering communities. I've used this approach in my honors thesis, which has investigated the critical yet under-considered educational and social opportunities within high school hallways. Over the past 2 years, I have delved into literature and case studies supporting the notion of school hallways as third places. Despite classrooms adopting new spatial organizations to support 21st century education, hallways have yet to fully develop from their industrialized approach. This research has considered the role of furniture, lighting, technology, and flexibility in their development to set standards for more intentional in-between spaces. In addition to a full research paper, a prototype has been designed to address this information gap. In doing so, it is hoped that learning and interaction can extend beyond the classroom and cultivate spaces for more engaged students. By first asking the critical questions of ourselves in the spaces we design, we as designers can inspire better, more intentional communities.
Hi, my name is Mira Shami, and I'll be graduating with a Master's of Architecture in May of 2021. Today I'll be presenting the project Commence. Commence is a project proposed by my partner Caitlin Oshkar and I. It is a mixed-use housing project that supports immigrants, international students, professors, and refugees by engaging with community members in Queens, New York. The high immigrant population makes over half of the total population and roughly 70% of the private sector, making Queens the most diverse borough in New York. Commence utilizes Queens' strong collective efficacy to provide a combination of legal, academic, and emotional assistance to tenants living in shared leased apartment, as well as the general public. Engaging the community in this housing project could help break the often daunting and confusing task of relocating to another country and give people a strong sense of cultural identity while adjusting to their new life in the United States. With these two contrasting uses, housing and public services, some formal steps were taken by creating alternating bands that physically and visually split them. In addition, these two bands have clear separation in material between a more homey, warm material for the residents and a frosted glass for the offices to let light in, but at the same time maintain privacy. To create a memorable experience, the ground floor is a public food market to showcase international restaurants and hold events that cater to people daily and help support the building revenue.
So David, those first three projects obviously dealing with different concepts about learning. I think the common thread there that I took away was, really approaching program in a very flexible way. Thinking about program really suffusing the entirety of a building, especially with that, hallways project that Elizabeth Koenig brought up. And then of course, the last project is really pushing the sort of formal stereotypes or formal archetypes of housing projects, especially for immigrant populations. And it's really interesting, even though Mira didn't go into it in much detail in her video. The project itself has these really interesting apartment floor plans, really flexible units, right, to accommodate a sort of ebbing and flowing population, while also really paying attention to all the things that those people might need for support. Anyway, really strong group of students. David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this group, even more than the others, was really dealing with challenging conceptual ideas. These were the conceptualists, I think. When you look at, like Mira's project, as you were saying, dealing with difference, I guess I would say, the difference between housing and office and how she layers that in her project. The notion of learning from play and creating a linear playscape, or taking a Greek notion of eudaimonia, or as you suggested, the hallway project, and really looking at third places and how those impact our lives. And I think you can see them grappling with the challenges of how do you rethink something? How do you create a new concept and spatialize it and truly make it different and shed our notions of convention when it comes to designing spatial conditions to create something new? And I think they're quite successful, but it's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said just now applies to all of these students that we've seen today, and to the Future 100 group as a whole. There's a lot of playing with conventions in this group. There's a lot of trying to find room for new typologies, to kind of question the way things are always done, and to kind of elbow and nudge a little space for fresh thinking. And that's such a hopeful sign. Just going through these portfolios has been such an optimistic and uplifting project for us. And thank you so much, David, for your support, for spending your time today with us, and for talking through these students' work with us. I really appreciate it. Thanks, of course, to Canon Design for being one of the sponsors of the program. Our other sponsors were Nelson and Interface. We're going to have content related to our Future 100 group throughout this month on metropolismag.com, on our social channels, as well as, of course, in our March-April issue. So keep an eye out. We're going to be sharing some more students' work. We're going to offer you different ways of diving into these students' work. We're really so proud of this group of students, and we're so proud and honored to have the opportunity to present their work to the community at large. They really do represent our future. Thank you so much, David. And thanks everyone for watching us today. Hi, everyone. I'm Avi Rajagopal, editor-in-chief of Metropolis magazine, and I'm thrilled to introduce you today to a few students from the Metropolis Future 100, who are the top architecture and interior design students graduating in the US and Canada this year. Joining me today to help you get to know these students is Robin Novak, who is the Vice President and National Retail Practice Leader at Nelson Worldwide, who are also one of the sponsors of this initiative. Robin, such a pleasure to have you with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I was super excited to be involved in this.
So Robin, give us your first impressions of these students. What did you think of them?
Oh, it was so exciting to see all the work, and it was super refreshing too. It was so enjoyable to see the level of thought, the variety in craft and execution, and the different approaches behind all the projects. I really found intriguing and rewarding.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It's just been such a great experience getting to know these students and their work. Academia is often criticized as some kind of ivory tower, but I was really struck by how connected these students are, to each other, to community, to history, especially in some of the projects we're going to look at today. It feels like the work is really always about context, even if the concepts are, really inventive and fresh. So I'm thrilled to dive in with you today. And so let's take a look at some of the students' work.
Great.
Hi, my name is Belle Carroll, and I'm honored to have been selected by Metropolis magazine for their Future 100 list, recognizing students for their academic careers. My favorite project from school is one that I call I Want to Hold Your Hand. It's a senior living project that studied the potential of architecture to ensure our autonomy as we move into old age. The scenario I dealt with were people who were entering retirement and who needed new levels of care, but did not want to move out of the home and neighborhood that they had tended to for years. The idea of adding prosthetics to architecture, like that of prosthetics to the body, started with the handrail, then graduated to furniture, and ultimately gave a design for a floor plan and an entire building. The major theme of the project is adaptability. How can your home respond to your needs as you age? I invite you to check out more about this project on my website at bellemcarroll.cargo.site. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Caroline, and I'm a senior graduating from the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth, majoring in interior architecture and design. One of my projects I featured in my portfolio for the submission was Hourglass Tapas and Bar. This project is a sit-down small plate restaurant designed around the concept of an hourglass. Hourglass is committed to bringing people together, so the menu is mainly made up of small plates, also called tapas, to incentivize groups to order a few dishes and share them among the table. With a variety of different seating arrangements and seating types, Hourglass is sure to provide many options for group and communal seating. The curves of the hourglass are used subtly in the finishes, furnishings, and layout. Cacti are used throughout the restaurant to add natural greenery and ornamentation. They also have the ability to grow in sand, which is the element that measures time in an hourglass. The guests experience the idea of time if they decide to go from the restaurant, down the elevator or stairs, to the Speakeasy Bar. The bar is designed to be a contemporary version of a 1920s Prohibition-era speakeasy by taking details and inspiration and implementing them in a subtle way.
Hi, my name is Madelyn Orcutt, and I am one of Metropolis Future 100 design recipients, and I'll be graduating this spring with a BA in Interior Design and a minor in Art History from Kent State University. Within interior design, I find it important to understand the historical context of a space. The project that best reflects this is my art museum and cafe I designed in Florence, Italy. The project was an adaptive reuse building, and over the course of time, the building has switched from public to private occupancies. In order to further explore the ideas of public and private space, I exploited glass as a material to understand those boundaries and transparencies. Another important part of the project was that the pieces on display were from the Art Nouveau period, which predominantly has whiplash curves. In order to make deeper connections within the pieces in the interior, I introduced curves throughout the space as well as an ease of circulation for the people interacting within the art.
My name is Nicole Roberts, and I am a senior interior design student at Auburn University. Naturally, my design process has many layers. However, the first aspect that I research is location, demographics, and culture behind where the project is located. I think this is very important to include in your design process, not only to create a well-formed space, but also so it can be functional to the people using it. You can see this approach carried out in all of my projects, but especially the commercial project for YouTube in Budapest, Hungary. For example, through my research, I found that the Dunab River is extremely important to Budapest culture. I chose to incorporate the curvature of the river through the wayfinding and curved glass partitions. This allows for more privacy between the offices, as well as an open concept where employees can interact with one another. The influence that culture has on my design process can also be seen in my retail project for Chanel in India through the choice of handmade wallpaper and vibrant colors, and in my hospitality project for the Raffles Hotel in Singapore through the emphasis of the historical colonial architecture, which is important to Singapore's history today. Throughout all of my projects, you will see this nod to the culture and historical integrity of the location, because I believe in the importance of emphasizing history while reimagining and creating new spaces.
That was such a wonderful set of projects. And what's amazing is that they all share this common thread of really being tied to place, whether we're talking about seniors who kind of don't want to leave the home that they're tied to, or we're talking about, cultural contexts or historical contexts. It's really fantastic. Robin, what did you think?
I completely agree. I thought, the collective of the four of them together, when you think about the contextual reference, and what I found so kind of interesting about each one of them was their articulation of it. The level of articulation behind each of these projects was pretty exciting. And when you think about that contextual reference, I do think it's something that we're seeing across the broader design community today. And knowing that these students have the foresight to be really pushing the realms now, I think it will be really exciting for where our future continues to take us in the design world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, we're having such big conversations about what is local and what is global, and how we can use place to build connection and belonging across those design sectors today. So yeah, totally agree with you. This is a fantastic set of students. Let's take a look at our next group of students.
Hi, my name is Ashley Schwartz, and I'm an upcoming graduate with an interior design degree from Kent State University. Today I'm going to be speaking about my Woodlawn Food Hall project that is located in Woodlawn, Chicago, and was developed in partnership with the YWCA. Our studio focused on addressing social issues like gentrification and redlining. My design addresses these issues by using the food hall as a vessel to amplify local business owners. This process included prototyping vendor spaces to replicate a drive-through, a food truck, a bar, and a storefront. Having differing vendor designs allows for unique interactions with consumers and for vendors to express their individual brands and experiences. Working with the YWCA allowed for the development of an incubator program that gives local chefs an opportunity to partner with a mentor in a teaching kitchen. There's also an incubator retail space for startups to utilize a mock store without having to pay overhead and also using a mentor. Overall, this project has opened my eyes to how design can be a tool to correct systemic social issues within society.
The project I decided to talk about is my proposal for the Girls for Gender Equity, which is a nonprofit organization focused on the equality of women, especially ages 9 to 19, because they're focused on after-school programs and proposal of bills and just overall education to women that are reaching maturity. So to talk a little bit about my design development and my concept for this project, I think my biggest challenge was to create a space that symbolizes change but is still kept current throughout the different development stages of these girls, because they are ranging from ages 9 to 19. So I took this issue and created a feature, which is my staircase. I decided to use that as a symbol of growing from a young age to a maturity. So I separated the floors in a way that the younger girls will be mostly focused on the bottom floors, and the top floor will slowly develop into a little bit of a more mature color palette, more mature activities. And I got very inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe's and her artwork and her political point of view. And overall in all my projects, I really enjoy finding sustainable solutions for long-lasting structures, but also I really enjoy researching other artists' views on social and political issues that I encounter while researching for a specific project.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan Brown and I'm an undergraduate senior from the Interior Design program at the Rochester Institute of Technology. I wanted to start by thanking Metropolis Magazine for the honor of being named a Metropolis Future 100 and for the opportunities that brings. One of my favorite projects that I've completed since starting my degree was for our Hospitality Design Studio course. We were tasked with creating a restaurant inspired by a piece of Rochester, New York history. For those of you who might not know, George Eastman, the founder of the Kodak Photography Company, was raised right here in Rochester. The company was founded here, and the city continues to house the company's headquarters. The multi-experience ADA-compliant dining space utilizes the plan from an oddly shaped building in downtown Rochester. The vistas from the corner structure were to be incorporated into the design in unique ways. Aperture, the name of the design, takes inspiration from Kodak and also from Damian Ortega's Olympus. Like Ortega, I decided to research and celebrate the intricacies and fragility of a camera's parts and pieces. Throughout the space, visitors can identify parts such as the camera's viewfinder, shutters, and even the accordion-like lens from the Kodak pocket camera. As a guest in a restaurant, the delicateness of a camera translates well into a dining experience and creates a unique atmosphere where everyone can enjoy a meal or drink and where individuals from Rochester can recognize a part of their past. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I look forward to sharing more about my projects in the future.
Hi, my name is Yasmin Ben Al-Taif, and I'm completing my Master's in Architecture at Columbia University this May. Building the Bronx is an affordable housing, mixed-use residential project in the Bronx, New York. The driving concept of the project is to rethink living norms in the 21st century, offering a more dynamic way of living with ample amenities and community spaces leveraged over private spaces. The second concept for the project was in relationship to form. We wanted to optimize the environmental performance of the building, and we looked at daylighting and shading as well as cross ventilation as main drivers for the form of the building.
What an exciting group of projects. What I found really intriguing about this particular group of projects was kind of the association and relevance regardless of scale, right? You look at Eastman's project and it was just, to me, it was an incredible piece of work and some amazing drawings, really, as she articulated, rethinking the norms of the 20th century through these vertical layers. And it really, the scale of it, of large scale, but down to the local personal level. And then kind of, in a completely different point of view and a completely different approach, but Ashley's a project on the Woodland Food Hall, such local relevance and, the articulation of details and thought in that. And, also stylistically, I love the approach and her style of her drawings as a way of communicating. I think sometimes there's that lost art of how our drawings as designers really articulate our design, and the point of view and the stylistic approach that she took was almost art upon itself, just in the style, which I thought was really intriguing and again personal.
Absolutely. Ashley's rendering style is just so great, and it's a reminder, as you said, that the way we express a project also has to do with the spirit of the project itself, right? So I think we forget this. We're so caught up with the photorealistic sort of expression these days that we forget that there are other ways to kind of invoke the spirit of a space. The other thing I really loved, Robin, across these projects, you talked about the diversity of scale. I love that they are also they're differently scaled. They're also very different project types. There's hospitality, there's a nonprofit in there, there's affordable housing, and yet they kind of share this real concern for the people that they're being designed for, the community. There's a real kind of progressive, maybe not necessarily in a political sense, but really forward-looking, really hopeful and optimistic point of view in these projects that I really responded to.
I completely agree with you, and I think that historical reference or connotation of the relationship between past and future, it is interesting to see the progressive nature of some projects, but still that underlying tone of relevance of, remember this place, remember, the Kodak example is a great example of many people don't know, but what a way to tell a story in a more contemporary manner of having an experience brought to life to teach the next generation about something that's very key to Rochester, for example.
Absolutely, absolutely. None of these students are, hitting you on the head with their vision or agenda. It's just so subtle, so nicely done. And I'm sure these spaces would be great to experience, in and of themselves. So very thrilled with these group of students. Let's look at a few more projects.
Architecture should be expanded to the device scale that can shift our relationship with climate or the environment, and can relate us to the non-human and the non-living, two dimensions I never realized before. The project Sound Strata proposes simultaneously two associated architectural artifacts in very different scales. One is related to the body scale, understood as a sound system, and the other is related to the building scale, as a performative tower. The sound device brings into discussion the idea that a city experience can be modified and transformed in relationship to the sound and noises, and pursued to evidence this in a physical way. The other scale is more related to a performative tower, which is structured through a series of bubble layers that make visible the taxonomy of sounds that we propose. These bubbles are inflated, deflated, in relationship with the sound levels of the city. A converter system is able to associate them with a specific volume of air and with the sound source, which is represented by different colors associated to the taxonomy. Architecture should also be expanded to a network scale, meaning that buildings are not isolated entities, neither fixed. We can create and trace a whole new set of relationships and moving connection between scales, entities, communities, or institutions. The building will always stay in the same place. Now I realize that I can be moving between devices and networks. Architecture can be unstable, ephemeral, or performative, and by so it can generate new changes.
Hi, I'm Gwyneth Harris. I'm in my third year of the Master of Architecture program at the University of Buffalo. I'd like to share with you a project that I worked on with Charles Wingfelder, my peer and design partner for this project. We designed a contemporary art center for downtown Buffalo, New York. The site, currently used as grade parking, would anchor the corner of two major cultural streets, filling in the urban fabric and activating the street. Reflecting on the climate in Buffalo, which is cold and overcast for much of the year, we wanted to find ways to celebrate daylight and connection to the outdoors when it is nice. The design concept focuses on selectively introducing daylight to create a variety of conditions throughout the building, and also on an idea about openness and porosity in the building's massing to provide respite from gallery fatigue. We created two broad categories of galleries we called introvert galleries and extrovert galleries. The introvert galleries are fully enclosed, inward-looking volumes that are pulled apart along specific edges to create light slices that wash the walls with top light or side light. The extrovert galleries are outward-looking, providing views overlooking the city and evoking the experience of an outdoor sculpture garden. Some of these spaces are actual outdoor terraces, but most are enclosed in glass with a lacy screen to create dappled sunlight. As visitors make their way down from the top floor, their path meanders between all of the different gallery types. The public spaces on the first and second level, including a gallery shop, cafe and terrace, and public forum, engage the street and draw people into the gallery. These spaces could also be open after hours. We think the flexibility and variety of spaces in this gallery building and the way it engages with the surrounding context would create a valuable cultural destination for both local Buffalo residents and visitors. Thanks for watching.
Hi everyone, my name is Kelly McGrath, and I'm currently a senior at Pratt Institute for Interior Design. And the project I wanted to talk to you today about was called the Tool Shed. It was for a project located at SDR Park called the Stanton Building, and we worked directly with the community members' needs, which was super exciting for me. It felt very real, and we proposed these projects at the end. And what I intended to do was to create a tool shed for the community for sharing resources, knowledge, advice. There would be give-take boxes outside where the community members could really exchange and have chance encounters, serendipitous zones where you can play with recreation tools that were outside like balls and jump ropes, etc. And then inside there would be a tool library with power drills and everything that you can borrow in addition to computers and tutoring rooms and anything that the community members might need that they don't have in their home right now. The idea was that with this very dense urban living environment, with predominantly very small living spaces, I wanted to create a space that you can borrow and use these tools, and it would become a space for exchange. And it was really exciting for me working with materials because I was actually thinking about ways that the building can circulate from the community and what they give. So for example, the community members could give their old nuts and bolts or kitchen cabinets or tiles, and they can become part of the building itself. For example, there would maybe even be these little classes where you can come and with nuts and bolts you can create a guardrail, a stair guardrail, or local construction working stores could provide the wood pallets that could become part of the ceiling, or the tiles can become part of the bathroom wall surface. And it was just really exciting for me to think about how to make these joyful spaces and really try to enliven the space for the community. And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. Bye.
Hi, I'm Reina Du. I'm a graduate student from University of Idaho. I will graduate this summer. I'm very happy can be selected for this year's Metropolis Future 100. I have to say so many thanks to Metropolis and my nominator Bruce Hagland. And this project is called a Spinning Forest. It's a future community. And this project is located in Shanghai, China. And this project had won the second place in 2020 Future Community Creative Design International Competition. With the rapid advancement of science and technology, 5G and various robots are being more and more frequently in our daily life. So as a social development, the aging population has become to a serious problem for all over the world. I try to use this design to find a solution in this project. And also sustainable design will be more and more important for a designer. So in this project, I tried to make a combination and combine technology, people's needs, and sustainable design together. I use CLT as the main material. The core structure is built on site. It looks like the tree trunk. The surrounding area look like the leaf. They can be made up at different factories at the same time by robots. This way can help us to save more time and manpower. Every single unit can spin 360 degrees around the center. I do have 3 different units for different people. They are single family units, retirement units, and multi-family units. And every single unit has their own top garden. In big cities, most people, they don't have enough outdoor space, but the top garden will give them space to relax. They can park their cars on the top garden as well. This building is more than a living space. It's like a vibrant tree, can be planted anywhere, and provide one-stop service for residents. And here are some interior renderings for this project. I hope you can like it. And here is Reina Du from the University of Idaho.
Pretty exciting projects when you look at it. And, you know, those particular projects for me, I think the thing that really stood out was the endearing quality about a response to kind of a civic approach, really thinking about the future of the city, as I think one of them mentioned. I love the dynamic thought behind that in the terms of scale. Again, and a lot of these projects have been about relationships of scale, and whether it's the future city and it's the full tower down to the tool shed, which is still a civic responsibility and an offering for a community. It's a different scaled conversation about the community, which I thought was really interesting. Another big takeaway I had from these projects as well was the role of modularity, like the conceptual nature to think of things as volumes and how the future of construction and the buildability and the positive negative relationships of those volumes and daylighting and, you know, even natural plant was really a great conversation that I thought, you know, was a thread across a lot of those projects.
Absolutely. I think those were my two big sort of reactions to these projects too. What's interesting is that they seem to think of architecture not just as a way to connect, to form connections between people, but also that architecture relies on those connections between people for its success, right? So, I mean, when you think about, Guillermo's conversation about, architecture forming networks rather than immobile buildings, this idea that, sound is all around us and that you can create this sort of ephemeral structure to capture that sound, to express it, to kind of, make visible this connection we have with each other in the city, but that, remains invisible and remains a very personal experience. And then the tool shed where, then each of us contributes something to a commons, right? Something that we hold in trust together as a community. And that was linked through in the Art Center project as well, in the Spinning Forest Towers as well. I completely agree. So, I think that modularity is such a key concept here. And Robin, you just stuck to the heart of it, right? It's modularity in terms of construction, yes, and types of spaces, yes, and can we think of the building itself as a kit of parts, but also a sort of modularity in terms of thinking of architecture or interior design itself, in that bits of architecture and interior design can reside with different people, different user groups. They can be relevant to different sort of people. Like, I love that vision of like somebody bringing their tiles and somebody bringing their tools to kind of create this interior. It's a different kind of modularity. And I just love that thinking. Absolutely.
I do. And I think it's interesting that perspective, like you said, it was all about connectivity. And as humans, I mean, that's what we all really want, is we want to make and create and continue to foster connections. And what a great way to allow the thinking behind these projects, that design and architecture could really be a method to just continually deliver another level of connection for all of us in all different scales of our lives.
Absolutely. I mean, this has been something that I've really enjoyed seeing across the 100 students that we selected as part of this inaugural Future 100 group. Even where the expression or the project type might seem conventional at sort of first glance, the thinking behind it is almost always unconventional. There's always something new and fresh that the students are bringing to these projects, and that's been absolutely fantastic to see. Robin, thanks so much for joining me today, and thank you to Nelson, as well as to our other sponsors, Canon Design and Interface, for supporting this initiative. It's really important to us, and we really, really enjoyed working with you on this project. For more on the Future 100, including samples of their work, analyses of their work, as well as profiles of the students, you can visit metropolismag.com/future100, and also take a look at our March-April issue, which is really dedicated to these students. We're absolutely thrilled to be able to bring these students' work to you, and we hope you enjoy diving into this work. We hope you enjoy connecting to these students. We hope you might even be inspired to reach out to them. We want this kind of amazing thinking to suffuse through the architecture and design industry here in North America. And we're so privileged to have these students share their work with us. So thank you so much, Robin. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And I hope you have a wonderful time exploring the work of our Future 100 students. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Avi Rajagopal, Editor-in-Chief of Metropolis, and I'm so excited today to introduce to you some really brilliant minds from the Metropolis Future 100, who are the top architecture and interior design students graduating this year in the United States and Canada. I'm joined today by Chip DeGrace, who is the VP of Workplace Applications at Interface, who are one of the sponsors of the Future 100 program. Chip, it's such a pleasure to have you with me today.
Good to be here, Avi. Good to see you again, and to review these tremendous students' work.
So Chip, what did you think of our Future 100 students?
I thought it was, first of all, I thought that it was fantastic work and so positive. So it built confidence in the next generation for sure. And you know, from Interface's perspective, we can't do it on our own. None of us can do it on our own. That is, we can't do great work on our own, nor can we save the earth on our own. You know, and we are at a point with climate change specifically. Of course, that's near and dear to Interface's heart. That we need, you know, everyone focused on it as much as they can, wherever they can. So we're particularly thrilled to be a part of this because these students and others like them represent, you know, the talent and the force that will probably make this happen for us. So, you know, a couple specific things. Just, you know, right now we're talking about embodied carbon. The building industry has been talking about, you know, how to make buildings more efficient. And right now, since climate change is happening much quicker than we thought, you know, embodied carbon is something that is front and focus. And I think the students actually dealt with it without saying it. It's repurposing and thinking about efficiency and thinking about materiality. All those things I think were exhibited in a lot of the work that I saw. So we're thrilled. We're thrilled to be involved. We're thrilled to see the talent and the you know, the kind of expertise and optimism that will be coming into the industry when these students actually enter.
Let's dive right in. Let's take a look at the first set of student projects.
Great.
Hi everyone, I am Ju Young and I am currently studying interior design MFA course in Savannah College of Art and Design at Atlanta campus. Atlanta is a beautiful city and the Beltline is the most significant sustainable asset of our city. Whenever I visited the Beltline East Side trails in the weekend, I was inspired of the artistic movements along the trails with the full of public arts and installations, mirrors, street arts, and performances. And I realized that there is no physical platform related to the art and design, and it led me to think about creating the Design Archive Center that's showing the history of Atlanta and their designers and artist movements, and facilitating art networking for the current local artists. If the photographers, mirror artists, and painters come along this community center and contribute to the communities by showing and educating the art and design, that small scale of artistic ripple lines can bring out bigger effects on the Beltline, Atlanta City, and moreover the Georgia states. So the concept in here was the butterfly effect, and I captured the every movements of butterfly wings flapping and applied that wing structures on the different functional zones. So through the customized sitting areas, exhibition walls and ceilings, and community cafe. In here, the collaborative art processes can support the mirror artists, local graphic designers, and photographers in every different spaces. Atlanta is a significant artistic city, and I really hope this project, those small ripple lines created by local designers and community members, can create enormous art movements into the city someday. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Wingman Chen. I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and I'm a graduating architecture student from New School of Architecture and Design in San Diego. Out of all the projects I submitted in my portfolio, I think one of the most prominent pieces has to be the Scenic Delta. It was a year-long project in collaboration with UC San Diego Natural Reserve System to explore a vision for a new wetland research and educational center in Mission Bay, San Diego, with a reimagined master plan design. I was working with 2 other students in the architecture and interior design field. The facility is located in the center point of 3 zones in the Delta, which are the marsh, the interactive nature area, and the human activity area. In the design development process, I was mainly in charge of developing the building form, defining the structural element, and the energy use strategies. The building is being integrated into the nature from form to energy use to space planning. The form designed is merging gradually into the nearby area instead of being a prominent piece in the site. Because of the organic form, I was able to implement some unique element where the users can experience the design differently. Not only to walk into the building, but user can also walk on or bike on top of the facade of the design. Sustainable energy strategies like radiant cooling ceiling, solar glass, and kinetic facade are integrated as well. Eventually, the design succeed in prioritizing natural recovery and user experience.
Hi, I'm Lea Avila. I'm an architectural designer, and I recently got my master's degree from the State University of New York at Buffalo. Today I'll give you a brief introduction of one of my dearest projects. It was my first design studio project, and that I also won a design competition. So the project is entitled Reciprocal Walls. It's a residential project located in the west side of Buffalo, New York. Imagine that on the same property live 3 families, where in one we have a writer, in the other one a painter, and in the other one a musician. So besides 3 houses, we had 3 different work studios. And the only rule of this project was that the 6 constructions were completely independent from each other. Having that in mind, I designed a system of walls with openings on them so that at the same time the walls could create a boundary between the spaces, but also the openings would allow for interactions and exchanges within the neighbors. And not only within the neighbors themselves, the work studios provided programs to the outside public, so people from the community, from adjacent neighborhoods, they could come and participate in these programs. And the walls would provide a way to extend the 6 constructions and became almost like live elements. That's why I call them reciprocal walls, because you could actually interact with the walls. The openings within the walls could create at some points seating spaces for the public to watch a live performance, like a dance or musicians playing outside. The walls became painting canvas for outdoor painting classes. In another moment, there were shelves within the walls where the community could bring their used books and place in the shelves and exchange books within other people. Overall, the walls create a boundary bond within the neighbors themselves and the outside public, but also establish different levels of privacy. So the walls close to the sidewalk were shorter with more openings, so the public could interact with the programs. While as you moved inside the property, the walls got taller with less openings, promoting privacy between the residents and actually establishing a boundary between the residents and the public. I chose this project to talk about today because I believe it touches in aspects that I love to incorporate in my designs, bringing the community together, enhancing the relationship between user and the building, and also creating multifunctional elements within the building that can function as structural, but also sometimes as places to sit or means of egress. Or in this case of the reciprocal walls, the walls are so much more than just walls.
Celebrating Tradition, a comprehensive floricultural center, located in Nayon, a parish on the outskirts of Ecuador's capital, known as the Garden of Quito, due to the wide variety of garden plants that grow in the area. This project is a space dedicated to the biodiversity of Nayon. It proposes spaces to conserve, enhance, and celebrate local tradition, combining programs such as a botanical library, herbarium, practical workshops, research laboratories, greenhouses, and an ornamental plants market. It seeks to integrate learning, research, production, and sales spaces, that would benefit and enrich this recognized parish for its plants. It also gathers in one place the resources and techniques used for floriculture that have been recognized as tradition in Nayon. A length-wide axis is drawn across the site from north to south, around which the program is organized, generating a production chain, starting with a learning area, followed by research area, then a production area, and finishing with a sales area. The Comprehensive Floricultural Center focused on making Nayon a green center, so green building was emphasized. For the sales space, a market was created with an ecological roof that could collect rainwater to irrigate the crops when there's a drought, seeking to make the center sustainable.
What a wonderful set of projects. I'm particularly struck by how they so easily build connections between sustainability and culture, or sustainability and art. I think that is the core of the climate change movement, which is still, I think, in need of sort of winning over people's hearts and minds. And I just love how they approach that. Chip, what did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, super smart and focused on user experience. I think all of them. To your point, obviously engagement in community and who actually is using that structure and that experience. The natural systems are, to your point earlier, evident, but they are not in most of these programs primary. They're there to support, and a couple of these are about the local and natural flora, fauna, and the service of that. But some others are more urban context, and I think, but light, ambiance, biodiversity, biophilic elements are all there supporting the main program. So just super smart. And to your point, engaging the user ultimately to help educate and bringing them along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Leigh Avila's project about walls. Whenever somebody does a wall-based project, I have to think of Robert Frost's good fences make good neighbors. The sense that a boundary can also be a connector. I think that's really powerful. And then of course with Maria's Floriculture Center, this kind of building a sense of community and a sense of pride, but also creating a resource for community. I think just that ambition, I think, of building community is just really incredible to see. Let's take a look at our next set of students.
Right.
Hello, I'm Irene Dizon. I'm a fifth-year architecture student from Cal Poly Pomona, and one of the projects that I included in my entry to Metropolis Future 100 was the Compton College from my education topic studio. So this project proposes a facility for the arts department in Compton College. So there's visual arts, dance, film, music, and performing arts. And as a community college student myself, I understand the need for transparency between the education and community college students. So this project focuses on keeping the porosity of the building as a way of encouraging the students to finish school. And since the site sits in front of a parking lot, it acts as a gateway into the campus. And so with this opportunity, when students pass by the building, they also experience the performances and behind the scenes of the arts department as a way of including them into this collaborative process. And throughout the project, there are several opportunities for students to learn from each other through their work and how they work, even without them having to be in the same room. So many art schools are commonly viewed as exclusive institutions that many people, including underrepresented students, cannot relate with. So I find that there needs to be a transparency instilled between the arts and the students as a way of making the arts accessible to the underrepresented students and for the students to be inspired by and continue supporting the arts. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Charisma Blitz, and I want to talk to you guys about Willow Creek Pediatric Cancer Center. This is a project I recently just completed senior year here at Rafferty University during my fall semester. So for about a year, my classmates and I studied healthcare trends and how cancer can have a mental and physical strain on the patient. We were able to conduct studies and interviews with people who have personally gone through cancer themselves, or if they had a loved one or family member who has also gone through this process. We were able to learn more about the mental strain and the physical strain it can do on somebody's body and their mental health, and how we as designers can help change the way they feel and grow within this space. So my space focused more on pediatric care. The location where I wanted to put it at, Richmond, Virginia, has the highest case of children's cancer in all of the entire state of Virginia. I figured this would be a good location to put it, so that way children and parents don't have to travel across the state just to get the treatment that they need. I use colors such as orange, teal, green, and some natural wood tones. The orange is a very social color. It's a very communicative color, and I felt that was important for children and teens to communicate with one another, so that way they have somebody in the process that can understand them and understand what they're going through. I had the teal for more of a tranquil, so they were able to feel more comfortable and calm during their time at the facility. And the green was a rejuvenation color to really just help motivate them and push them through. There are also little sparks of yellow here and there throughout the facility, just to spark that interest of hope and optimism within them. We were able to make a teen lounge and a kids lounge for the patients, so that way they can have a bit of a break from the infusion and from the strain of that. I'm really grateful for all the things I learned during this process. Recently, my mother was diagnosed with stage 2 blood and bone cancer, so I was able to take this project really to heart and understand it more deeply and in tune. So I really found it amazing how we as designers can really help how people feel and grow within the space. So yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Gabriella Fier. My project Chainmail Boathouse was done in collaboration with my studio partner Marlena Fleck. Our project is essentially an exploration of metal mesh as a facade strategy and technology. So we were really interested in the way that metal rings act as a fabric when draped over different objects. And so we even played around with the size of the rings themselves, and in the more private spaces on the site, we have smaller rings for a tighter knit weave. This would create a lot of shade and privacy. And then in the more open spaces on the site, we have rings of over 1 foot in diameter, and this created a lot of openness and interesting textures on the ground with the different layering of the chainmail. And we also played around with different materials. Like, we found it really interesting that you could use transparent plastic or even recycled plastic.
Hi, I'm Vidya Mishra, and I'm a final year student at Syracuse University doing my Master of Science in Architecture. I'm also a licensed architect in India, and the project that I'm going to be talking about is in Mehrauli, New Delhi, which is a very historical site being close to Qutub Minar. And what is unique about this project is that it tries to marry culture and the history of a site to sustainability. So it's a mixed-use development which has retail and offices at the frontage near the main road for accessibility purposes. And then it has the art gallery and library right in the center. What's unique about the art gallery is that it derives from the ancient banyan tree, which is really culturally significant to Indian culture. That's because when there were no formal classrooms before, people and students would sit under the shade of the banyan tree and sort of take classes. And the art gallery in this site sort of translates where it's cantilevered on top of an amphitheater, which is shaded by the art gallery, and people can sit and enjoy the performances. Now the library is entirely sunken, and they have skylights at the top, which makes it a part of the landscape, and you get a lot of natural light coming in. What's unique about the housing part is that it has views to Qutub Minar, and which is a really tall monument. So you get views from all the apartments to this really important building. And there are things like light shelves, light wells, and community greens on the middle floors to encourage people to interact more. And that is what makes this project unique. Thank you.
Well, Chip, another set of students who I think are really concerned with that idea of community and connection. I wonder if there were any standouts in there for you.
Well, first of all, I think there was a wide range of sector specificity, like, in service of healthcare or higher ed, the college project. So a high degree of specificity, and then even more, a higher degree of specificity and intimacy around the user. It seems like these folks really understood who their user was going to be. Vedyan Mishra, I think his project is comprehensive and large in scope, but I think he got down to like the actual user sitting under the banyan tree, and I felt like that level of intimacy with even someone participating in that studio with the chainmail, different porosities of chainmail, and then also the project, the healthcare project. I mean, I just felt as if this group specifically understood their user and almost was one of them.
Right, absolutely. And it's really that attention to sort of the individual experience of space that makes it. And it sounds like also a lot of them had very personal connections to the buildings that they were designing. This relationship of, I study in a community college, so how can I relate to how somebody at a community college? I have somebody in my family who has cancer, so how do I relate to the experience of cancer patients? Or this is the city and tradition in which I grew up in, and so how do I bring that experience to the people who live in a building that I design? It's just that is also just really nice to see, and I think that maybe lies at the heart of that empathy that you're talking about. I think all these students really excelled at kind of bringing that forward and then translating it in spatial and architectural terms. Also, of course, again, permeability, porosity, transparency, these seem to be, sort of overarching concerns. It seems to be, a medium or a concept through which students are trying to translate a multiplicity of concerns, whether it's around sustainability, whether it's around accessibility or diversity or, community. I mean, transparency, porosity, permeability becomes this kind of vehicle for so many things, and that's just really amazing to see. And something really, I think, new and unique with these students. Let's take a look at our last set of students here.
Hello, my name is Alessandra Shorten, and I am a senior interior design student at Virginia Tech. I want to start off by thanking Metropolis for this incredible opportunity. I am so honored to have been selected. The project that I'm most proud of that I will be talking about today is the Phoenix Public Library. This building was over 13,000 square feet, located in Phoenix, Arizona, and was a mixed-use building with residential apartments on the second floor. I would say I'm most proud of myself for this project because it was completed in the spring of 2020, which was also quarantine. I had to adapt to a fully virtual learning experience while living at home with my family, and I still managed to push myself harder in this project than ever before. The concept and inspiration for the space was the location. Arizona is a very hot, dry desert environment. Amidst this dry desert environment, our natural springs act as hotspots to unique animal and plant species. This is similar to a library, as the resources a library has to offer are often unique and inaccessible elsewhere. I wanted to highlight these resources as the hotspots for the public, and I did this through atrium-like spaces. These atrium-like spaces were placed along main circulation paths and highlight 3 different resource areas. The first being the staff area, the second being the reference area, and the third being the main book stacks. These resource hotspots also house local Arizona plants, which I wanted to create a nice setting for people trying to read or learn or grow. The space was 2 floors. The mezzanine was on the second floor, along with an open to below space into the main atrium. And I completed 7 renderings, 3 elevations, and 3 axonometrics, which is the most I've ever completed for a project. Thank you again for this amazing opportunity.
Hi everyone, I'm Han-Qing Yao. I'm currently doing a Master of Architecture at the University of Pennsylvania. I grew up in Shanghai, then did my undergrad degree in Berkeley, and now I'm in Philadelphia doing my last year of master's degree. To me, connection between people, culture, nature, and society is the most important thing in design. The project I want to talk about is Suspended Environments, which is a food science center located in Lower East Village in New York. So in this project, My partner and I were trying to design a new typology by creating a floating landscape embedded within a huge cantilever. By doing so, the project blurred the boundary between people, nature, and the city. People are in constant interaction with the suspended environment, experience different scale, distance relationship with the nature. Suspended environments rethink the relationship between natural and man-made, creating a new typology for the city profile and how environments are interacted within the city.
Hello DesignTV, my name is Eliza Vida and today I'm pitching the immersive pop-up. This was a showroom that I created for SketchUp as part of the 2020 challenge hosted by PAVE, and my solution was chosen as the honorable mention. The concept was to create a mobile and adaptable structure that would translate the brand authenticity of the client. Since SketchUp is a software, that would mean technology would be an integral part of the showroom. And there's a variety of different technologies, from virtual to mixed and augmented reality gadgets and headsets to large format screens, kiosks, and projections that all aid in creating an immersive retail experience. It was important for me to study the customer journey to create an experience that would guide them from point A to point B with intention to introduce, experience, educate, and sell the product. When you first walk into the showroom, you are grabbed by an interactive experience that imitates the push-pull tool in SketchUp. The whole pop-up uses graphic displays and visual merchandising that imitates the SketchUp interface and tools, which would reiterate the brand identity of the client. I designed each industry that SketchUp caters to as an experience using techniques that would create a visual connection between what you see in person versus on the computer screen. Adaptive reuse was a huge part of this retail concept. The entire building structure is composed of 2 upcycled shipping containers which have openings for skylights and doors. The structure is modular and each container can be loaded on a truck and transported. Power can be supplied by battery power generators to the pop-up shop, which would make it outdoor friendly. Materials played a huge role in putting this retail concept together. I focused on natural and recycled materiality that is durable, fire retardant, and code compliant. I also integrated antimicrobial surfaces to comply with the latest CDC guidelines. All in all, this high-tech experiential showroom is a response to the retail challenge that many vendors out there face as our world is moving towards a more digitalized direction. A store today is a place where you can activate your brand, show what that brand stands for, and that was my mission with this immersive pop-up. Thank you for watching.
Hi, my name is Katz Tamnaha. I'm currently completing dual master's degrees at Pratt Institute. I'm getting an MFA in interior design and an MS in sustainable environmental systems. Today, I'd like to talk about a project that's still in process, my MFA interior design thesis. The working title is called Harvesting Water, Reimagining Environmental Waters as Constructive Materials in the Resilient Coastal Interior. It's a mouthful, but essentially the idea is to design an interior space that works in symbiosis with water. We're facing a new era of climate change, and architecture and design has to adapt. Right now, a lot of disaster risk mitigation strategies include building walls to keep water out, or coordinating managed retreat processes to get people safely away from the encroaching water. My thesis asks, what if we stayed and let the water in? Can it help us? Can we help it? The project is located on a toxic water body in Brooklyn called Coney Island Creek, which is so contaminated that it's currently being evaluated as a Superfund site. My proposal is to take a coastal warehouse along this creek and turn it into an industrial algae farm that would use the tidal water to grow algae and then return phytoremediated water back into the creek, slowly detoxifying it over time. The ground floor of the site would be constantly flooded, refreshing the water supplied during high tide from the creek and draining out excess during extreme events. Rainwater harvesting systems in the ceiling would grow freshwater algae, helping to divert stormwater from the sewer system, which is extremely important in New York City, where our sewage overflows whenever it rains more than 1/10 of an inch in an hour. The algae being grown would then be harvested to use as raw material for local small businesses to develop products. Algae is currently being used to create dyes, textiles, pigments, and all sorts of new materials. This would promote local economic growth in what's traditionally been a disinvested, vulnerable neighborhood. The goal is to harness the new realities of climate change to create a better, more sustainable, and more equitable future. Thank you.
What a wide range of ways in sort of bringing nature into the built environment or bringing the built environment into nature. You know, we have Alessandra putting atriums with like, local Arizona, flora in them. In a building, we have Hanqing Yao. I mean, really upturning the idea of, of a building, floor plates, all of that in the service of, creating these interactions with the landscape. And of course, Kat's allowing her building to flood, which is just fantastic. And then, of course, you think, Elizaveta's, pop-up for SketchUp has nothing to do with nature, except, of course, she's designed it to be put in the middle of a park, right? So there's all this thought about how, you can make a retail experience work sort of in an outdoor public space. So just loving it. Chip, what did you think?
Yeah, same, widely divergent, but I mean, some rooted to their sites. The Suspended Environments project, I mean, just incredible. It's just incredible what, so romantic, and how she thought about bringing, nature into that urban context. Yeah, they all did it so uniquely, so strong. The concept is so strong that the building is secondary, obviously, and of course, from my perspective, with the focus on embodied carbon these days, she wants to use an existing warehouse. So does it matter? Does it matter? The power of sight, helps, root a building in that context. But two of these were fairly abstract. Yes, the harvesting water idea was to be on a specific creek, but none of us have been there, so we didn't know based on the presentation. And then the pop-up store could be anywhere. So yeah, really, really well done.
Yeah, and Chip, you've been pointing throughout this, attention to the experience of people within a space. And then of course, we've been talking about this connection with nature, the connection to the site. I think there's just, there's a real attention to what really are the fundamentals of, an architectural design or a spatial design, and really going back to first principles about, why we build, why we create spaces, right? And at the same time addressing some of these, not new, but resurgent concerns around, climate change and other things, and also, the loss of biodiversity and so on. So just a fantastic set of projects. I don't know if you picked up on this, Chip, but, this group of students in particular, there was, I think, several references to, conditions that are specific to the COVID-19 pandemic. Elizaveta's project, of course, was conceived in the early part of 2020 when, the CDC's guidelines around antimicrobials were very different from what they are now. And yet, there was this kind of response to the things that are going on around them, which was really good. It also reminds me that, this group of students completed their education under really challenging circumstances this year. I think, if you're completing coursework or things like that and you're in a virtual classroom, that's one thing. But to really find the motivation to pull through studio projects, by yourself without the connections, the interactions that usually enrich a studio project, just must have been so challenging, right?
Well, again, I have a student, an architecture student, and they're extremely successful in participating in studio digitally through Discourse and other sorts of platforms. And yeah, it was extremely difficult, I think, and kudos to the tremendous work. But it gives me confidence that such ingenuity, such creativity can happen despite tremendous challenge over the last 12 months. It just gives me optimism, Avi. It really does.
Absolutely. And that's we really need a dose of that. One of the reasons we put together this Future 100 program was to encourage students during this challenging year. But of course, it's a program we hope to bring back year after year to really highlight the work of students and the new ideas that they're bringing into our industry, into the architecture and design professions. Thank you so much, Chip, for joining me today, and thank you to Interface for your support of this program. Our other sponsors in the program were Nelson and Canon Design, of course, two great architecture and design firms. We look forward to all of you interacting more with these students' work. So if you want to see more, if you want to dive deeper into their ideas, please go to metropolismac.com/future100, or get hold of a copy of the March-April issue of Metropolis. I really encourage all of you to really engage with the students' work. Reach out to them if you'd like. Reach out to us if you want to talk to one of the students. We're here to facilitate those connections. This is such a fantastic group of talents, and we really want to see them flourish and grow in their chosen professions. So again, I invite all of you to interact with their work. And one last time, thank you so much, Chip, for doing this with me today. This was so much fun.
You're welcome. It's a great, again, as difficult as these times are, Avi, it's a great time, I think, to be a designer and to be a design-focused person. We are optimists by nature, and the world, I think, needs us. So yeah, if you're out there as a designer, this is your time.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a great day.